Okay, here we go again. I'm like, this is my fourth time. It keeps saying my disk is full, go back and delete previous videos and this and that. Anyways, oh, and then we had this really cool ad come in for the fun learning games for first graders. So here we are. Let's see if we can do this now. I'm going to speed up the video a little bit, so the part that we've already seen, where he squirts the dye through. But other than that, this is really one of my coolest favorite videos.
When people think of a sponge, they usually imagine something like this. A cleaning sponge for washing the dishes, or for washing the car. Cleaning sponges are synthetic these days, but they used to come from the ocean. Back in the days before we had synthetic sponges for housework, cleaning sponges did come from the ocean. They were harvested by hard hat divers walking along the ocean floor in heavy weighted boots with a rake-like tool to pluck the sponges off the bottom. It was a dangerous and difficult job. Bagfuls of sponges were lifted to the boat above. Immediately, the crew set to work cleaning the sponges. Then they were hung to air dry. After days or weeks at sea, when the boat was full of sponges, they were taken to shore where they were auctioned to the highest bidder. Finally, they were trimmed, sorted, and sold to the public. Natural sponges are still harvested in nearly the same way today, but the synthetic sponge has spared the lives of countless ocean sponges. While an ocean sponge looks something like a weird plant, it's actually an animal. In fact, sponges are among the simplest multicellular animals on Earth. They live on the bottom of the ocean, attached to a surface and never moving because they can't walk or swim. Some are quite colorful, while others are drab. They also come in all shapes and sizes. There are tube sponges, vase sponges, barrel sponges, rope sponges, encrusting sponges, and many other types. Sponges live from the frigid waters of the Arctic and Antarctic to the tropics. On many coral reefs, sponges dominate the seafloor and the drop-off. One of the most common sponges on coral reefs is the barrel sponge. Barrel sponges grow to epic proportions, getting larger than a person. Although sponges can't walk or swim, they can feed. They do it by filtering tiny plankton from the water. A sponge is covered with small pores called ostia, which lead to a system of internal canals and eventually out to one or more larger holes called oscula. Within the canals of the sponge, chambers are lined with specialized cells called choanocytes, or collar cells. The collar cells have a sticky funnel-shaped collar and a hair-like whip called a flagellum. The collar cells serve two purposes. First, they beat their flagella back and forth like fans to move water through the sponge. The water brings in nutrients and oxygen while it carries out waste and carbon dioxide. Second, the sticky collars of the collar cells pick up tiny bits of planktonic food brought in with the water. Sponges are very effective filter feeders since they're able to capture and eat particles as small as...
Okay, so we've seen this part before where he puts the dye underneath. Let's see, we'll move it forward, see if it'll catch up with us here.
Or it...
Okay.
Fertilization occurs. Since sponges can't get together to reproduce, they spawn in a way similar to coral. The sperm is released into the water column by the male sponge. It finds its way to the female sponges where fertilization occurs internally. Eventually, the planktonic larvae are released from the female sponge and float around in the water column as plankton for only a few days. Then they settle down and start growing. Sponges don't have many predators. There's not much nutritional value in a sponge, and they're hard to digest. Hence, very few animals can eat sponges. But something was clearly eating this sponge. A sea turtle is the culprit. Sea turtles are one of the principal predators of sponges, along with a few species of fish and some invertebrates like nudibranchs. Sponges might not be very exciting, and they certainly don't have much personality, but they're an ancient animal that has been living in the oceans for at least 500 million years. They can't crawl around or swim, but they're very good at reproducing and feeding themselves by pumping water. So, chances are sponges will continue to populate the oceans longer than people will populate the earth.
Whoa,
Oh,
a
dear.
tabby mind map!
There it is. Okay, let's go back to our notes real quick, and I'm just going to quickly go over, let's see, where were we? The taxonomy, in case we missed that before, because I'm not sure exactly where it cut off, okay? So the taxonomy, we are in the kingdom Animalia, phylum Porifera, class Calcarea, class Desmospongiae, and class Hexactinellida. Okay, so real quick on those, we did the harvesting sponges. Okay, class Calcarea. So we have balloon sponges. They have star-shaped spicules made of calcium carbonate, and they have like this mesh-like structure. They all live in seawater. And the calcium carbonate is a substance that's found in animal skeletons. Okay, so for this class Calcarea, I'm going to move this up so you can see that. Class Calcarea, I would draw a little balloon next to it to remind you that these are the balloon-shaped ones. And then a star, because then star-shaped spicules. And then, and you could do calcium, CALCAR, calcium carbonate. That's what they're made up of. So for from here on out too, when we have your tests, you are going to be tested on the classes within the phylums. And so, for example, this one, I'll probably have, there'll probably be like 8 or so matching, and then one will specifically say the balloon sponges, and you'll have to know that they are in the class Calcarea, okay? Here are some examples, pictures of some more. So to see that real mesh-like look, that's what it's going for there. Okay, the next class is class Hexactinellida, and these are the glass sponges. They all also live in salt water, and they have 6-sided spicules made of silicone. Okay, so here I don't know what you want to like draw on the side to, or maybe a glass for a glass of water or something. And 6-sided spicules of silicone, the S's, I don't know. Somehow remember to tie that in. So you can say these have like 6 cool shapes of their spicules, so they're 6-sided. And then I do have a couple. Here's another picture of the glass sponge here, the Hexactylina. Okay, more glassy looking. And then we've got a cool video for Hexactylina. Let's see here. Oh, I got rid of it when I had to go back and make my changes. Okay. What? Okay, this is what we're gonna do. It was the Hexactyl. We'll just do glass sponges. Here we go. This is the video. It's pretty cool.
So this is a sponge. This is an actual animal, and the body structure is actually composed of glass. And so all of these projections that you're seeing are essentially sort of living silicon oxide extensions of this animal. It's almost like it's out of science fiction. It certainly looks like it's from out of science fiction.
So we got two sponges that show completely different morphologies. They're both glass sponges. The paranematids in general tend to be very massive, so in some cases you can see these things that look like Jabba the Hutt down there. They're really that quite big.
All of those fibers that connected to the bottom, those are reminiscent of fiber optic cable. They look very much like it. They feel very much like it in texture, including if you accidentally pick one up, they can give you splinters.
There have been some engineering studies of some of the giant specules of deep sea glass sponges, and they found that they can transmit light better than human-generated fiber optic cable.
Wow, better than. That's amazing.
That's pretty amazing.
Jeez.
You're right.
Talking about a Dr. Seuss-like landscape. Wow.
Look at this. This is amazing. If we could just hold the scene for a moment.
Wow.
This is Attack of the Sponges here.
You wanted sponges, Chris.
Yeah, I got them. Yeah, that's, well, okay, I got them. Wow.
So the great thing about this that I love is the way they're all oriented directly into the current.
Why? Because that's how they eat.
This one looks like a Muppet.
This is why sometimes I think these sponges, when you come up against something like this, you think you're on a different planet. Just so strange.
Wow, it goes on and on too.
Every time we do these dives, all I can think about is, you know, this is the type of experience someone would have if they found like life on another planet.
Very awesome.
You know, everything's so alien to, at least for me.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because they kind of repeat their audio. Okay, so wasn't that cool? Pretty bizarre, pretty amazing. So those are animals at the bottom of the sea. Okay, let's get back to finishing up here with our classes. Very little bit left here. Why is it not working? Come on, at the very end, let's do this. Okay. Class Desmospongiae, common sponges. And so these are the sponges that I actually have examples of for you to feel and to do for our lab. It includes 80% of all Porifera sponges. They have spicules made of silicone and spongin, so Desmospongiae. They live in fresh or salt water. So you remember only 2% live in fresh water. And so of those, then those are all the Desmospongiae. And that is it. So I've got some more pictures to show you of that class. Here's some more. The large barrel sponges are part of it. Okay, look at that one. Is that incredible or what? Okay. Oh, there was one last video. It is of a carnivorous sponge. So, right. So remember how I say, well, there's exceptions to almost every rule. Here is our weird exception to the sponges. So if you know what a carnivorous animal is, a carnivorous animal eats meat. Okay, so let's do our last video here and be done.
So sponges are pretty chill, right? They're just gentle filter feeders that bask in the sunlight and absorb nutrients from the water around them. Except that's not true of all sponges. And here's something you might not have expected. Some of them are carnivores. Normally, a sponge absorbs nutrients with the help of its aquiferous system, an internal series of canals, chambers, and spaces that filter water and nutrients. But sponges of the family Cladorhizidae have either reduced or entirely absent aquiferous systems. To get their energy, they've evolved a very different strategy. They catch and eat small animals. And to do this, they've developed some pretty amazing adaptations. For one, they've taken on strange plant-like shapes. They often have stalks or branches reaching up off the seafloor, and from their bodies, long, thin filaments stretch out around them like fishing lines. Each of these filaments is then lined with tiny spines called spicules, and that's where stuff starts to get really cool. These spicules act like hook and loop fasteners to catch the little legs and hairs of tiny crustaceans or other animals, and they seem pretty effective. The prey captured by some of these sponges can be as long as 8 millimeters, which isn't bad for a sponge's dinner, especially since many sponges aren't huge themselves. Of course, catching the food is just the beginning. You still have to eat it somehow. And when those sponges are ready for their meal, they make use of another amazing ability, migrating cells. Like all organisms, sponges' bodies are made out of cells, but sponges can do something pretty cool. Their cells can make trips across their bodies. Some sponges may use this ability to help repair damaged body parts, and others use cell motion to slowly crawl across the seafloor. But carnivorous sponges use their migrating cells as mobile stomachs. Once prey is captured in their filaments, stem cells near the base of the sponge begin to multiply. Then they turn into digestive cells and swarm upward. Slowly but surely, they surround the prey and begin digesting it and absorbing its nutrients. Some of these cells even produce their own digestive enzymes, while others harbor enzyme-producing bacteria. So basically, these animals make a stomach, and then that stomach travels upwards to claim its meal. For a large morsel, digestion can take 8 to 10 days, but afterward, the sponge is ready to feed again. You might expect such an odd lifestyle to be extremely rare, but scientists have identified more than 175 species of carnivorous sponges. They think this might have happened because these animals live in nutrient-poor waters, like inside sea caves or hundreds or thousands of meters below the surface, which makes them crummy places for filter feeders. So any sponges that live there have had to adapt and find new ways to get their food. And apparently, along the way, they developed a taste for tiny critters. So it just goes to show that even the calmest-looking things in nature can secretly be really hardcore. Thanks for watching this episode of SciShow, which was brought to you by our patrons on Patreon. Thank you to everyone who supports the show, whether you've been... We couldn't cover...
Okay, awesome. You guys, we are done with sponges. So, do you have the read color label for Porifera for you guys to do? If there's time, we'll get that passed out. If not, don't worry about that. We'll get to it on Monday. But enjoy your weekend, and hopefully I'll see you guys on Monday. Bye, guys.